Joining me is New Hampshire State Representative Karen Ebel. Karen, thanks so much for being here. The biennium's over, so I guess I'd like to start with, your thoughts about the major things that the legislature accomplished in this last biennium. What are, 4 or 5 major things that I think will have lasting impact that you and your colleagues did?
Or didn't do.
Or didn't do. Okay, or didn't do.
Or didn't do. But I would, first of all, thank you for having me back. Once again, I always enjoy coming back to New England College and Capital Connections.
You're most welcome.
Thank you. I would say that, of course, the overarching concern from this particular biennium, and I think it's been growing, has been the issue of the opioid crisis. And it just touches so many aspects of the budget and of life here in the Granite State, and I think we've really had to step up and analyze what's going on and how to deal with it. And of course, there were many bills to fund more corrections, treatment. It just covers the whole gamut. I think a very key thing in all of that was that we were able to pass Medicaid expansion once again.
So let me stay with the opioid and then turn to Medicaid expansion real quick.
It interrelates, but yes.
Do we have the right policy in place mixing treatment and law enforcement in this crisis?
I mean, that's hard to know. I think that we're learning a lot more about how we have to focus on it more as a treatment issue than as a corrections issue. But there was a discussion on the floor at one point about increasing penalties for this and that, or giving more money to the police. There was a grant. There was a grant issue whether or not we should give more money to the police to enforce the laws at a local level, and there was some argument as to whether they should be getting more money or we should be putting that into treatment. I think you're right. It has to be a two-pronged approach, but it also has to be we have to be very careful about how we apply each of the standards. I would say that we need more money for treatment because we can't keep the people off the streets, and then the crime is going to be hard to counteract if we don't sort of stem the desire for the drug. I think there's a lot more discussion that has to be done on that.
And I don't expect, in something this complicated, and I think people hopefully don't expect that it's like, oh, we got it done, it's over. This is going to be a thing where we're going to respond, we're going to learn what works best, what doesn't work, and there may be blind paths that you go down and say, oh, we got to go back and try something different. It's complicated.
It's really complicated, and in some it's just so amorphous, because part of the thing that you're dealing with is this whole issue not only of the prescription medications and how that leads to heroin addiction, but I think one of the biggest issues is that the people that are buying heroin, it's mixed with fentanyl, and fentanyl is a synthetic drug. Heroin is not a synthetic drug, and there seems to be a lot more mixing of the fentanyl into the heroin.
And it's the fentanyl that's really causing...
And it's the fentanyl that's really causing a huge problem at this point. And it's, some people may be taking straight fentanyl and they don't even know it. I mean, it's interesting. One of the, you ask about the corrections versus the treatment. One of the things that we had to do in this past legislative year was increase the penalties for dealing fentanyl, because nobody ever focused on that as a drug that people were abusing in the way that they're abusing it now. And the whole issue generally of synthetic drugs is, I mean, it used to be you would say, okay, if you deal heroin, you will be,
Right, but now it's a chemical compound.
It's a chemical.
And no, that's not illegal. I'm dealing with a slightly different.
And we had a big discussion about that. But you asked me about treatment.
And I have to cut you off because
we're
out of. But in the next segment, we're going to continue that conversation. So please stay with us.